Our organs are critical, just absolutely critical to us. Our uterus, our ovaries, our gallbladder, our organs are not expendable. And Western medicine has felt that they were, and they're not. They do so much more than you can even imagine. We don't even know.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. This show is about helping you to be more healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as to tap in your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. Hey, if you're a woman, you are in luck today because we're going to talk about hormones. We talk about this a lot on my show because, wow, hormones control so much of not only how we feel, but how we look, and most importantly, the quality of our life, the feeling component of our life. And if you're a woman, I know you've probably heard of estrogen and maybe progesterone and what's going on. Maybe you're childbearing age, maybe you're menopausal, premenopausal, whatever. But you know what? It all is very important with what's going on inside your body as to how you're going to be feeling day to day, no matter what stage or age of life you're in. And I love this episode because it's with Dr. Elizabeth Plourde, who I found through some of my research, poking around in my neck of the woods areas that I like to study. And I came across her work. She is just she's just an extensive researcher, I guess is the term. She just put her nose in books day in and day out for almost 12 years straight, researching, trying to help herself when she underwent a hysterectomy several years ago. And whoops, they took out her ovaries as well without her consent. And apparently that was just business as usual back then for surgeries. In fact, conventional medicine did that kind of thing to women when they performed a hysterectomy. They took out the ovaries automatically without even telling them because they thought, we'll just give them the benefit of the doubt. They thought that it was a prophylactic, intelligent, preventative method saving the woman of future problems hormonally. But of course, now we know better because guess what? We now know, go figure, every organ in your body is there for a reason. And guess what? You also need them your whole life. Even if you're not of childbearing years anymore, and maybe you don't even want to have children, your ovaries, your uterus, all of that is important to have in your body. Even if you're menopausal, you're not bleeding anymore, you don't want to have babies, or you never had babies in the first place. Doesn't matter. All that stuff is very important functioning in your body for you to not only look good, but feel good. In fact, your ovaries and your uterus are much more than just producing estrogen and hormones and progesterone in your body. They're also very critical in you getting good sleep, in your energy, your level of fatigue, in your mood, if you feel depressed, if you feel unmotivated, and of course, your mojo, baby. Yes, your sexuality, your libido, your sense of vitality that you should have in your body and soul every day of your life. I don't care how old you are. It's all about being spunky and having a zest of life. It's just that zing, you know? That's your mojo, baby, and you need that to function your best. So today's show is with Dr. Elizabeth Plourde. She is a clinical laboratory scientist and North American Menopause Society certified menopause practitioner. Her education is augmented by invaluable experience gained while working with cutting-edge DNA and cancer medical research laboratories. When her research revealed that sunscreen actually promoted melanoma and harmful life in the oceans as well as human life, she had been writing books, articles, and speaking to warn about this. She has many books, and I'm going to refer you to the other episode, part 2, that I recorded with Dr. Plourde for you, where we talk about her research with the sun and sunscreens and that is episode 117. So I'll refer to part 2 of this interview with Dr. Plourde, episode 117, where you can learn about the importance of sunscreens, saving the coral reefs, and saving yourself from getting skin cancer, for that matter. Got to check out that 117. But Dr. Plourde is the author of many books, one of which is EMF Freedom, Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution, as well as the Sunscreen books, the biohazard books, and 2 books on hysterectomies. Hysterectomy, the best or worst thing that ever happened to me, and the 2003 Your Guide to Hysterectomy, Ovary Removal, and Hormone Replacement from 2002. So she's got a bunch of excellent books. Again, she is a prominent researcher. How would you like to spend 11 years in a library? 11 years. We're not talking to you 11 hours, 11 days, 11 years. Okay. So I would say she's pretty qualified to talk about this stuff. And when I found her, I reached out to her and asked her to be on the show to share her findings with us. And I'm thrilled that she said yes. So in part 1 of our interview, today's episode on hormones and hysterectomies, we also talk about the holistic role of the body, how all your organs are very important at every stage of your life. We talk about the conventional mindset of hysterectomy surgery, as opposed to what we know better now, the broader scope of how everything's related and the importance of these organal functions. We talk about the critical role of all the organs and the role of estrogen in bone health, osteoporosis, heart health, fibromyalgia, your eye health and function, Alzheimer's, depression, feeling unmotivated, and sleep. Not to mention the effect of biodynamic hormones and creams and pills, and how EMFs are related to all this. EMFs is an acronym that stands for electromagnetic frequencies, which are basically the man-made invisible frequencies that are coming off your computer, your cell phone, your Bluetooth, your iPad, your television, your smartphone, your smart meter, your smart TV, your smart kitchen, your Alexa, whatever it may be, the satellites above. We can't see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, but it is affecting us all the time. And so many adverse symptoms are a result of these EMFs, such as dehydration, which leads to headaches, infertility, heart palpitations, a lack of focus, cancer, blue light. We know fluorescent light, indoor lighting is definitely positively correlated with skin cancer, as well as other cancer. Also, they increase blood pressure, blood sugar, hello weight problems, hello appetite that can't be satisfied, skin rashes, blurred vision, fatigue, and they can mask as Lyme disease symptoms. Yes, you heard that right. This is a must listen to episode. There's so many detrimental side effects and adverse symptoms of electromagnetic frequencies that we are all swimming in daily that people are not aware are affecting them. Now, look, I want to tell you, we're not saying don't use them. I'm using them right now to connect with you. I'm very grateful for them. They're not going anywhere, right? Technology is here to stay, but let's learn how to use it intelligently. Let's learn how to mitigate the damaging effects. And most importantly, let's learn how to protect the unprotected, all the creatures of the earth that are being affected by these adversely. All the systems of the planet, the water, the soil, the migrating birds, the bees, the butterflies, all the animals and creatures that are being zapped unknowingly, and they didn't sign up for it. So let's all be educated so we can make conscious, informed decisions. That's what this show is about, my friends. And for that matter, I thank you for being here. I thank you for sharing it. We need to come together to get this information out there because it is not too late. We can be part of the solution, but it takes informed education and action. Okay? That's why I bring this show to you for free, because it is my service to you and the world and my way of dying knowing I did everything I thought I could do with blood, sweat, and tears and effort to bring it to you. So thank you for sharing it with me. I can't wait to share this episode with Dr. Plourde with you. I think you're going to love it, and I thank you for sharing it. And don't forget to subscribe so you get every episode every Tuesday. All right, I'll see you. Let's go join Dr. Plourde. And welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Today, my guest is Dr. Elizabeth Plourde. Dr. Plourde, welcome so much to the show.
Thank you so much. I still appreciate being able to be here. The hardest part about doing the research is realizing all the billions of people on the planet don't know everything that I'm piecing together. And as I piece it together, I'm so horrified as to how misled we are on so many areas. Totally misled.
So many areas. And I got to tell you on that note, in researching you, of course, I heard about you before, but really digging in deep to, prior to you coming on the show, I am amazed at the scope of your research. Not only the depth, like you really go deep dive. Like I heard you say on one interview that you were like in the library for like 10 years straight and they would kick you out every night. And that's just one area. Like today we're going to talk a lot about hormones and stuff, but on some of the other episodes that you're on the show, we talk about other topics like EMFs and, sunscreen. And so your knowledge of different areas in depth is extremely impressive.
Well, I feel like I can't write a book until I know everything, literally know everything. That the UCLA library that I was doing that research in has all the medical journals going back to the 1890s from all around the world. And I didn't write my hormone book until I read every single article written around the world for that 100 years. I felt like I couldn't write justly to really represent what was happening to women, because they're being so they're not being believed, and that's the problem. They're really not. My symptoms that I had following my hysterectomy, the doctor said, "Oh, you're just mourning loss of your womb. You really need a psychiatrist." And yet I was reading in the 1895 British Medical Journal women who had their ovaries removed, which I can't imagine. Ovaries removed in 1895.
And living.
Right, that's true.
Mm-hmm,
it was just the ether gas. It was just, but they were saying the exact same thing I was saying 100 years later.
I think what's amazing too, that sadly, apparently you found all this, it's in the research. Like everyone always believes the science. Well, apparently it's right there if someone has the time and energy and the interest to look for it. So it's right there. So before we get into, the practical side for everyone watching and listening, what do you think that's all about? Like, if it's there, why doesn't mainstream kind of know about it more?
Well, the doctors aren't taught this. And so we believe the doctors. And, this is really what they're taught. They're taught that women are hysterical. That's why hysterectomy. And so they're taught not to believe women. And, it's a journey of women taking the place in the world where we're believed by men. And it's a huge thing. I'm reading now about World War I and World War II and what women were going through. And my word, we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
Right. And I think what's interesting is for everyone to kind of take a pause, on our fancy modern day, to consider that it's only recently that even women are doctors, and it's only recently that even the medical profession at large is regarding a woman, a female, as a different physiology, not necessarily lesser or greater, just different, because up until recently, the model for the human body has been the male, the masculine. So how is that not going to affect all of science, medicine, research? It's a whole paradigm shift.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I see in the research is that the bias of the researcher dictates what the study is about, so that you can't even get to the truth because there's so much bias in the question in the research they were doing. So
Yeah.
It's really incredible. It really is. And that goes for everything, hormones or EMF or sunscreens, or it's for in everything.
Yeah. And that's something I think we're only starting to understand collectively, is that you can't take the researcher out of the experiment. Like there is no true 100% objectivity. You know, like you said, the tester is part of the experiment, like it or not, in spite of all best intentions. It's just projection, whatever you want to call it, that may be getting into the, you know, the morphic field or something, you know, somehow resonating an energy. It's like we can't take ourselves out of the environment, out of the equation, without thinking it's going to affect it in some way.
Absolutely. And you can't, once you do the experiment, you're actually changing everything. You change things as you do the experiment. So it's really amazing.
Yeah.
We humans are just incredible beings. We really are. And, you know, just so many aspects of us that just one of the reasons I'm a researcher is I'm in awe. I'm in awe of our body, in awe of how it's made. I just, it's, when I looked at women's ovarian hormones, 35 years ago, I was looking at being in awe of everything it did in the body, but they keep finding more and more and more things that it's doing. It's not just for bones and joints. What I've been looking at this week is how it's the estrogen, premenopausal estrogen, is very involved in our mitochondria, very involved in how they function. And so we have chronic fatigue. We have all these problems because our estrogen isn't correct for our mitochondria health.
Mitochondria is huge right now, like huge in so many areas, you know, and we're going to talk about light and sunshine in that as well. So, but you know what, if you don't mind, let's just back up a second. And if you could explain for people what a North American Menopause Society certified menopause practitioner is. Did I say that right? Because I never heard that. That's incredible.
Great. Yeah. It's a group of doctors in North America. Well, they're from literally all over the world, but mostly North America, who are OBGYNs who are involved in women's health and menopause. And so they specialize in doing research on menopause and menopause problems. And then if you want to be certified by them, you have to take their exam, study their information, and take the exam and pass that. So, and then you got to keep getting certified.
Well, I just think it's so cool that there is even something exists such as a menopause specialist. I mean, I know I've never heard that, and I've been in the industry over 30 years, in the holistic health industry. So yay, I'm so glad. And I can't even imagine like that specialty, the effectiveness and the importance of it. So again, that's another reason why I'm just thrilled to have you come on the show. So why don't you just give us a brief summary of what brought you to that? Like, tell us about the situation with your hysterectomy and the ramifications and your findings.
Okay, I'm a clinical laboratory scientist. That's what I was doing. That's what I went to college for, and interned for, because it's a incredibly difficult program in California. You intern for a year, just like a doctor does in a hospital, and don't sleep for a whole year, and just do nothing but study. And then when I got in the lab, I realized that laboratory tests aren't that accurate. And I sat there going, oh my gosh, I feel unethical. I felt terrible about the results I was turning out. So I left the lab and I started selling to doctors all around in different states. And then I started bleeding very heavily. I was really exhausted. I was way out of progesterone. And so I was bleeding heavily and had to stay home with bath towels. It was that bad. And the doctors all said the only answer is a hysterectomy. And we're talking 35 years ago. And so I finally gave in, because I thought, well, at least maybe I can, work most of the days of the month if I get a hysterectomy. And then I just crashed and burned, because my problem was I was just flat out exhausted, adrenal fatigue. My mitochondria were fried. And so I really crashed then. I got to where I couldn't go to work at all. Absolutely. And all my symptoms were just so heinous. And I cried all the time. I couldn't be around people. Estrogen is our socializing hormone, and I just didn't want to be around people. We had this great group of people that met at our house once a week, and I loved those people. I'd look forward to it. I'd rush home from work and, look forward to that night. And after the hysterectomy, all I wanted to do was bypass them all and get into my bedroom and shut the door, because
Wow.
I just didn't want to be around people. And so as I started looking around, I was calling on doctors from Texas to Hawaii. I finally found one doctor in Beverly Hills who told me, your problem is hormones. Your problem is you're missing testosterone as much as estrogen. And I didn't absorb oral, so that didn't help. I don't absorb cream, so that didn't help.
Oh.
And she got involved with a company that was trying to get FDA approval for hormone pellet implants. They're just tiny little pieces of hormone they implant under the skin, and they dissolve 4 to 6 months, and you don't have to worry about them. And once she put that in, 2 weeks later, it was like I finally felt like me. It was such an incredible difference. And then I started researching, thinking, well, if only one doctor out of that whole geographical area knew how to help me. I wanted to write a book on helping other women who were probably suffering the same way. And then luckily I live near UCLA, and it just got lost in the library for 11 years. Literally, I did not quit until I had read every article.
11 years.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I was doing 11 years ago. I mean, that's, day in and day out, 11 years. That's nuts.
Well, I had such a passion to help women because I knew how my life had been devastated. My husband's life, my daughter's life.
Yeah.
It just, because you can no longer be a mother, you can no longer be a wife. You just don't function.
Well, like you said, you weren't you. You lost yourself until you got the replacement to go back to being you again. Like you kind of fixed it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hormones are very powerful. If you could see how tiny these little pellets are, and they last 4 to 6 months, I mean, it's just amazing how powerful they are. So then I published that book, and then
what book was that?
Hysterectomy, ovary removal, and hormone replacement. So
okay, so that's not Hysterectomy, the best or worst thing that ever happened to me. That's a different one.
That's the second book I wrote on hysterectomy.
Yeah.
Because that is a collection of women's letters who wrote me after reading my book. And their letters were so poignant and impactful. I thought the world needs to hear these women's words.
There's your testimonies. Yep.
Yeah. And it's divided into those who just had a hysterectomy only, kept their ovaries, to those who had one ovary removed, and then those who had both ovaries removed. And then I also have a section in there on tubal ligations, because tubal ligations can mess up women's hormones, and then the doctor says, oh, can't be from the tubal ligation. And it really is. It can
just
be
a coincidence, right?
Right. Yes.
Right. Well, on that note, what is a hysterectomy? Is that the removal of just the ovaries, the uterus state? Can you define for us exactly what that is?
Hysterectomy is just the uterus.
Just the uterus, and not necessarily the ovaries. So when it's ovaries and uterus removed, is that called something else?
It's called hysterectomy. So it's the ovary in front of the hysterectomy.
And you had just the uterus removed, or?
No, we're talking 35 years ago. I was 43 years old. And at that time, the OBGYN guidelines were, if a woman's over 40 and she's on the operating table, to protect her from ovarian cancer at some time in the future, remove her ovaries. He never discussed it, never said a word about them. And I woke up from the anesthesia with a nurse trying to shove a pill down my throat. And I said, what is it? She goes, it's estrogen. The doctor took your ovaries, and he doesn't want you to feel the effect of their loss. which is just right. Yeah. So
you had no
if
consent. He just took out
no,
some of your body parts.
no, and it's in their guidelines, so you have no recourse.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
It's
so
changed now.
violating.
35 years later, they are now understanding how important the ovaries are. And they're now saying that doctors should stop taking them out. And they're upset with the doctors who are still taking them out because they do what they were taught in medical school.
Yeah. And they're too busy.
So
They're
still,
they're busy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they don't have time to even read the research.
That's what I mean. Yeah. They're just in the day to day.
I've called on enough doctors where I'll see a stack of medical journals all open to the conclusions. And that's all they would read. It's just the conclusions. And being a researcher, the conclusions oftentimes don't match what's in the article at all. The conclusion is what the researcher wanted to find, not the truth.
They usually support who's ever funding whatever they were trying to get.
Oh, absolutely. That's true. Well, and also their bias. There was one article that I was reading at the UCLA library. It's got wood chairs and wood floor. And I was reading through it, and it had all the things that I had gone through, all the things that I was seeing other women go through, all the problems. And then the conclusion, hysterectomy is associated with a vast improvement in the quality of life. It was such a shock from the data that I absolutely leapt up out of my chair. The wood chair fell over on the floor and clanked in this library. But it was such a shock. But if that's all the doctors read is just the conclusions.
Wow.
And that's all they give for the problem with the EMF today. The politicians only read the conclusions or the title, and they don't have the ability to read the inside the content. And so they keep approving all this EMF, all these towers, all these smart meters, and they're just so harmful.
And what I've learned too with research studies, and I'm not a statistician, but the details are everything, because the person the scientist running the study can define the terms. So a lot of times, however they define something for that study is then therefore how they will reference it. So for example, this whole thing about vaccines, well, a vaccine in most people's mind is a certain thing, like it's a small amount of the pathogen, that's injected to increase immunity response, blah, blah, blah. But as what's happened with the whole COVID thing, they redefine the term vaccine, but they're still using the term vaccine because they think people are going to associate something, but that's actually not what it is anymore. Not to go off on a tangent, but that's just an immediate example. So they can define something however they want by, sins of omission, leaving out certain parts of it, but saying something else. So it's all the wording, the phraseology, and again, he who holds the gold rules, right? Like however they want to define it, and then it's almost like their conclusion can back into it. It's like reverse engineered into what they wanted to show. So by only reading the conclusion, it's like you missed, well, maybe that's not your definition, because I know for me, that's not a definition of a vaccine, and that's not informed consent, because then it's like, we're not agreeing on terms here, but I'm assuming we are if I skip to the conclusion. So how valid can that be? And I'm not having informed consent.
Absolutely. Yeah. That you're right. It's staggering. And one of the things about EMF, I hate to switch back to EMF, but American research on EMF is totally biased. It's totally in the pocket of cell phone companies. It's just, when I was doing the research on my EMF book, EMF Freedom, Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution, I realized that nothing coming out of America was valid. Nothing. And what I saw was this pattern of, if another country said EMF causes XYZ, whatever the symptom is, that American research would come out 9 months to a year later, EMF does not cause XYZ. It just, and one of the articles that just really blew me away was EMF causes hearing loss. And
Oh.
9 months later, American study said EMF does not cause hearing loss. So I read the article. They exposed the person for 5 minutes. Five minutes. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, we all only get exposed 5 minutes, right? That's really practical.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just amazing to me how it's all twisted to favor who's ever making money, whether it's cell phones or sunscreens or hysterectomies. I mean, hospitals have gotten a lot of money out of the hysterectomy surgeries there.
Yes. Okay. So, can you now go into the holistic role of the ovaries, the uterus? How the uterus is so much more than just a baby making home, and you know, the role of ovaries in the rest of the body with the production of hormones, and how they're so important at every stage of a woman's life. Otherwise, your quality of life is going to suffer. So, can you just educate us a little bit on that?
Absolutely. Well, the uterus, I found out very abruptly, puts out a prostaglandin that regulates body-wide blood pressure. And it does so because when we're pregnant, we need to have normal blood pressure. So it makes sense the uterus is making this prostaglandin. And after my hysterectomy, I'd always had 120/70 my whole life. I've been told by every doctor, you could live to be 100. Your blood pressure is so good. And after my hysterectomy, my blood pressure just went way out of control. Just
Up?
had never up. Yes,
Yeah, up.
way high, way high. Yeah. And in
Wow.
fact, I wound up in the ER with it so high one time, and they
Wow.
wouldn't let me leave the hospital until they had forced a blood pressure pill down my throat. So, and then each one of those blood pressures, there's 5 different groups of them. I got sick on every one. I finally decided I'd rather die of a stroke than to feel like this.
Yeah.
Literally, they were that awful. And I've since found that if I just take CoQ10 every day, my blood pressure is normal. But so that's finally solved. But just that alone, without warning women that you're going to have higher blood pressure. But it does so many things. The ovaries make every hormone that the ovaries make are very critically important for the entire body. Our premenopausal estrogen is involved in every tissue of our body, involved in our eyes, involved in our mitochondria, intricately involved in our mitochondria. And then our eyes, I've been having trouble with glaucoma. And when I went to the doctor, I mean, this is a journey of learning, right? When I went to the ophthalmologist, he said, so anybody in your family? And I said, yeah, my mother. And he goes, oh, yeah, so it's genetically inherited, the glaucoma. And, but I didn't put together, my mother had hysterectomy.
Oh,
so
wow.
She was low on estrogen, but estrogen's very involved in protecting the eyes so you don't want to run into that high pressure. It's just amazing. In fact, they do have estradiol eye drops that I would love to be able to get hold of, but I haven't been able to get hold of them. But it makes sense to put estradiol right in your eye to help all those tissues in the eye. When you look at the eye and the diagram and what estradiol does, and that's true with the joints, it's bones, it's the muscles, it's the digestion. These hormones are involved in every aspect of your body, every aspect.
Yes.
It's just
so
amazing.
These organs make the hormones, I guess is what we're getting at for everybody with us today. So your body needs them to make them for your whole life, not just for periods of life, like when you're having kids or whatever. And like Dr. Plourde is saying, just to reiterate, these glands and organs are for all other areas of your body, not just the immediate area of their sex organs, you know, like the eyes, like you mentioned the digestion. People never think, what's the connection between ovaries, uterus, and your digestion? And blood pressure. You taught me something today. I never knew that. And how about heart, right? Obviously the heart connection, and
Absolutely.
mood, depression. Our moods.
Absolutely. All of it. Yeah. Serotonin, very involved in serotonin in our brain.
Mm-hmm.
No two ways around it. Like I said, I couldn't stop crying. It was just, I just cried nonstop. It was just awful. And as far as the heart, um, one of the doctors, he's OBGYN, I talked to him about my research. And a while later, he sent me a pre-publication article that was going into OBGYN magazine that proved, he said, I set out to prove what you were saying. And you're totally right that if women have their ovaries removed and don't get hormone replacement, they die before women who haven't had a hysterectomy have heart problems, heart disease, because we need these hormones for our heart.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. And Alzheimer's too, right? Do you, can you expand on that a little bit with our mental capabilities? What's going on there? The mechanism?
Yeah, the what changes in the brain to lead to Alzheimer's
Mm-hmm.
is definitely involved with estrogen. You need estrogen to allow that to happen. And when you don't have the estrogen, it doesn't happen. And so we get this plaque buildup in our cells. So it's critical. It just amazes
So
me.
many roles. So many roles. We never. Wasn't in my science books. And like you were saying, I guess that we did know it, we, whoever it was, like you said, you found it in the research, but we didn't know it, or I don't know, the right people didn't know it, or everybody didn't know it, or whatever you want to say, but apparently somebody knew it, but we weren't taught it.
That's right. Well, and the doctors aren't taught it.
Yeah.
When I do menopause consults,
Yeah.
and I tell my consult people that by the time you're through with my consultation, you will know more than your doctor about hormones.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. They really don't know.
And what you're doing is you're summarizing your 11 years of intense study and research experience for them, and kind of encapsulating it for them. And here you go, so wow, you've really time shortened the whole thing, which how so smart.
Yeah, we really need the estrogen. We need the premenopausal estrogen for all these tissues. We have osteoporosis. Osteoporosis starts, bone loss starts the day we lose our ovaries, the day.
Wow.
And in a year, we're fully diagnosed with osteoporosis. And then women fall and break their hips, and then they're in bed because they don't heal, because there's not enough bone to heal. And and they die. More women die from osteoporosis. 3 times more women die from osteoporosis than from breast cancer a year.
Okay, so then 2 things. What can women do who still have their ovaries and they don't want to get osteoporosis? And what about women who've had the ovaries removed and they're like, oh God, now they just got the heck scared out of them? What would you recommend for both those groups?
So if you've lost your ovaries, find a doctor who will do bioidentical hormone replacement.
Okay.
Part of the reason that estrogen got a bad rap is that they used non-human estrogen for that huge Women's Health Initiative study that they said it causes breast cancer. And tragically, that American research went around the world. And so I hear from around the world because my books went around the world. And so I hear from people in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and their doctor won't give them estrogen because of our study that gave it such a bad rap. And all it was they don't do studies on anything human because they can't patent it and charge 2,000% more than what it costs them. So they're not willing to invest the money in the research. And so this is the problem. Most of these studies that say estrogen is bad is synthetic or, not human. And it makes no sense. I mean, they give Premarin, which is pregnant mare's urine, so it's horse estrogens.
Yeah.
We don't use horse estrogens. We use human estrogens. And that's what created the bad rap. So find a doctor. Yeah, find a doctor who believes in bioidentical hormones, and then creams work if you absorb creams, and or through the vagina. You can get the hormone through the vaginal canal too.
Mm-hmm.
So, or if you need the pellets. And the problem is that the FDA has made pellets very difficult to get. I'd been using the pellets very successfully for over 30 years, and they decided that the pharmacies are really running everything, the pharmaceutical houses, and they decided they could make pellets, and so they wanted to put the compounding pharmacists out of business. And
Wow.
and so I've had a horrible time trying to find pellets that work for me, because there's so many requirements now. It's like $1 million for a pharmacy to switch to all that they're requiring for the manufacturing of the pellets.
Wow.
And so now they're not in customized doses, because they got to make it in batch, because the FDA wants to come in and pull a sample and make sure it's the right dose, make sure that what they're saying is the dose. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so I really have been struggling for 2 years, and I feel the difference in my body, because I just don't absorb anything except for the pellets.
Is that unusual? Like to not, I mean, I didn't hear, most people do pretty well with the creams, right? Transdermal. I mean, is that, or is it just whatever across the board? Everyone's totally different.
Well, there is a large percentage of women who don't absorb the creams.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's not large, but I mean, it's enough percent. Exactly. And so, and I tan really easy. 5 minutes, I start tanning. And one doctor asked me, he said, well, since you don't absorb creams, do you tan easy? And I said, yes. And he says, I seem to put that together, that women who tan easily don't absorb the cream as easily. So
wow, so it must be something to do with your epidermis, the thickness or whatever. That's really interesting.
So yeah, but trying to find doctors who are doing this now. I finally found a doctor. It's been 2 years, but I've got to go out of state because California won't allow it. Won't allow this particular manufacturer to give me, to send in the pellets for the doctor to use.
Can you give us some pointers as to how you did find the doctor? So for anyone watching or listening, if they're like, well, I got to find one, like, how did you do it, or where can people go?
I don't know if many people remember the commercial, let your fingers do the walking through the yellow pages.
Yeah. Do we have yellow pages still?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. But
okay, we'll look in a safe search engine, not Google, which is a curated business.
I belong to Medicare HMO.
Okay.
And what I did was I went through every single OBGYN, called them all, asked. I was down to the last name, and that guy said, sure, come on in. I've been doing them. It's a great technology. And so he handled me for quite a few years, really, until he retired. He was very old. He was in World War II as a doctor, so he was very old.
Well, that's just another example to your perseverance, just like your 11 years of research. And for everyone listening and watching, like, you gotta have some resiliency to find your answers. You can't just look for a couple days or months or maybe even a year or two, unfortunately, and give up. It might be really crappy. It might be really hard. But look, you just said you went through the whole list and you just kept looking till you found someone. Hallelujah.
Right, yeah. So
yeah.
Right. And throughout all these 35 years, as I've had doctors die, I've had doctors retire, I've always been able to find another one. So it is definitely possible. And so when I do a consult, I give the women the questions to ask their doctor.
Oh, cool.
I don't recommend doctors anymore, because I can talk to them about one aspect and then I refer them, and then they call me and say he said this, and I'm like, I don't believe in that at all. And so I just so I give the questions to ask to make sure that the doctor can do what it is that I'm advising them to do, which is to get the bioidentical hormones in some form or other and not rely on blood tests. The blood tests, that's why I left the lab. The blood tests are 40% inaccurate on hormones.
Okay, can you expand on that a little bit? Because I hear that all the time. People saying, I'm getting my hormones tested with a blood test. Like, what's going on there? Why are they inaccurate?
Just inherent, it's an inherent flaw in the test. Okay. So it's no matter whether it's blood or urine or saliva, it's still the same test that's 40% off. And
40%.
Yeah, so it's like you might as well toss a coin.
That's almost half. Right. Toss a coin.
Yeah. So when I do my consults, I have 6 pages of profile. I have them fill out these questions because I go by symptoms, and that's how doctors used to treat.
Symptoms. How the person, the individual, is reacting or not.
Right. Yeah. And for an example, in my book, I really need to add a page to my hysterectomy, ovary removal, and hormone replacement book, because I say in there that my sexual response never came back to the level it was. And then finally, after years of having the pellets, one of my doctors said, you need more testosterone. And I said, but I'm already up at the high maximum for women. I'm already at the edge of where men are. And she says, I don't care. Your muscles aren't right. Your energy's not right. You need more testosterone. So all I did was add 10 milligrams for the 4 months, 10 milligrams. And my sexual response came back. Just that alone. And so here, if I just relied on just the normal values, I would have never gotten that answer. And I'm so glad that doctor noticed, my lack of muscle tone for lack of testosterone.
Yeah, and your libido. So there you go, biochemical individuality. We have to all be brave enough to really pay attention and respect what our body's saying, in spite of what is quote unquote normal for everyone else. At the end of the day, your body's not going to lie. And I think what's interesting too is that a deficiency of the hormones can have the same symptoms as excess.
Absolutely.
Which is tricky, right?
It is. It really is.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
A little curveball for you, but.
And part of the problem is that the doctor that was training all the other doctors in the nation for hormone pellet implants was not following the patients. He had his staff follow the patients. And so he was recommending way too much testosterone. I had women calling from all over the country, just miserable, because he was recommending 100, 125 milligrams. The most I've ever taken is 79, and that was too much. I had to come back down. And so these women were just totally miserable, but he never saw the outcome. He never followed up. And so all these doctors across the nation got trained to do excess.
They're just going by the book, and that's it. Book closed. Yeah, interesting. Can you talk a little bit as we kind of come toward the end here about the role of progesterone in excessive bleeding? Unfortunately, we're hearing this a lot with a lot of women that are just, their periods are nuts. And we know a lot of it has to do with a lot of the COVID shots and stuff. But, the hormonal problems, women that are postmenopausal getting their periods again, spontaneous abortions, like excessive bleeding with periods, lots of hormonal stuff going on. But in general, what is the role of progesterone with excessive bleeding?
Right. So, the body is made, so when the ovary ruptures an egg and the egg follicle ruptures, what's left is called a corpus luteum, and that is pure progesterone. Okay. And so that just slowly dissolves into the body. And when that runs out, that's when the menstrual cycle starts. It's about 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, when you run out of progesterone, you start bleeding, because it's very anti-bleeding.
Progesterone is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And estrogen and progesterone need to be balanced. They just, women should not take estrogen without taking progesterone, because estrogen is the one that makes the cell division. Progesterone comes along and says stop, and stop dividing. So it's what really helps maintain the women not getting cancer.
It's the checks and
But
balances. Yeah.
absolutely,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
So, but the electromagnetic radiation today is lowering women's progesterone. So there you're getting bleeding. So, and then most of them been on birth control pills. And birth control pills, you don't ovulate at all, so you're not getting progesterone. So there's a very lack of progesterone in the women in our nation as a whole.
And symptoms of low progesterone, excessive bleeding, problems with sleep. What else? Hair loss, headaches.
Calmness for sure. Yeah,
Not
because
being calm. Yeah. Progesterone calms you. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So
Yeah.
anxiety, kind of like ADD, like wound up. Again, not sleeping. I know hair loss for me. Even hair texture.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously.
I was really in shock during these few years that I haven't been able to get my pellets. How my hair just changed. It was really amazing to me. Even though I was using, you can get lozenges that go in the mouth, but even though I use those, and I had tried those before they found the pellets, they didn't they didn't work then, and they still don't work, because my hair, I could just really feel the difference in the quality of my hair.
Yeah, so there you go, right back to your results. Like whatever, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's how your body's reacting. And even what's interesting I found is that can change. You know, like maybe the weird thing is you could have not responded to the lozenges like a year ago, and then you try them again 5 years later, and you do. Like, because you're different 5 years later. We have to be flexible in mind, body, and spirit, you know, to be open and in the moment. I mean, everyone talks about being present. Well, being present is not being closed-minded, like, oh, it didn't work before, so you don't even try it again. You know, it's like we have to kind of be open and then, you know, really pay attention to what your body is reacting to or not.
Right, and not listen to the doctors. They just
be your own doctor.
Yeah,
or at least
really
collaborate, you know.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for all my strong biochemistry background that I have to be able to work in the lab. And that's what allows me to do the research and to look at what they're saying. And this doesn't make biochemical sense.
Yeah. See, you're much more educated than the average consumer, you know, but you're obviously putting that to good use with your lifelong service. Well, this is incredible. As we get to the end here, I know we could go on more and more, but is there anything really just you feel is really important to get across to the audience today in regards to the hormones, the hysterectomies, the women's glands, the ramifications, any of this stuff?
That our organs are critical, just absolutely critical to us. Our uterus, our ovaries, and our gallbladder. Our organs are not expendable, and Western medicine has felt that they were, and they're not. They do so much more than you can even imagine. We don't even know. I mean, the things that I've learned in the last few weeks about estrogen and mitochondria, I'm like blown away. It's no wonder you start having problems with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue after you lose your ovaries, because it's very involved in how the mitochondria work.
Do you want to give us a little quick snippet on that? Like, because that's new to me too, the role of estrogen and mitochondria. Like, is there a little synopsis? I know it's extremely complicated and maybe I'm doing a disservice to ask you that, but just curious because that's really interesting.
Well, it's very involved in the health of the mitochondria. So when we lose our estrogen, our mitochondria are no longer putting out the energy that you need. And so that's it. Biochemically, it would take a while to explain, you know, just what's happening there. But I am just amazed. As I've found pellets again, went out of state and got my pellets again. And as my body's rebuilding, I've been amazed at how much it started going downhill that you don't notice. You know,
Yeah.
my husband's favorite line is that if it wasn't for my pellets, we wouldn't be married, because it's such
Oh,
a change in me.
wow. Yeah. Well, like you said, you were a different person. And there's your testimony to the power of hormones. I mean, think about feeling angry is a hormonal reaction, feeling sexually aroused, hormonal reaction, feeling, sad, happy. They're all hormone. It's controlling who we are, our moods from moment to moment. The reason why people work out, take a cold shower, I mean, pick it, right? Like go to the beach, or why sometimes rain makes you feel good because the negative ions and the reaction in your body. It's like these are all we are matter in spirit, but where the matter is important, the matter part of it is that we're chemical soups, so these are all chemical reactions that are very, very real and powerful. And that's why I love my job, because it's all about learning how to live in a holistic, natural way that's in harmony with how it's supposed to be. Because what's really sad for me, Dr. Plourde, is a lot of people don't know what it is to really feel good naturally. Like, I just feel good. Like, I don't need this, that, the other to feel better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know when I need a good workout, or I need to take a cold shower, or whatever. We all use these things, but it's just cool to know, like, we're in more control of how we feel and look than we think we are, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And in a natural, relatively inexpensive, quite enjoyable way, not in a way that involves, deprivation or punishment or any of that stuff. It's more just the way it should be.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Natural living.
absolutely. Right. Yeah. And we need to get away from the cell towers and the smart meters and all the radiation, because that is just it is causing so much harm, and people don't understand it. And again, the doctors don't understand the damage that's being caused.
Because it's being buried. It's being buried. I mean, basically what's happening is it's basically short-circuiting our whole system. Is
Right.
what, because we're electrical, right? I mean, we're magnetic and electrical, and we're introducing these artificial electrical frequencies that are
Right.
short-circuiting everything. It'd be like, I don't know, you'd be better with an analogy than me, but how can it not be affecting our bodies? And, why don't we just diverge right down that path, if you don't mind, and let's go into that a little bit about what are some of the main bullet points you want to share with people about what's going on this day and age with, we've got satellite dishes beaming us 5G constantly. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't feel it. It's happening. Smart meters, cell phones, blue light.
Absolutely. It's just so being a menopause practitioner and consulting around the world for well over 20 years, my consultation has gone to electromagnetic radiation sickness, because people are so sick all around the world, in all the countries, even Africa. I was amazed that we were able to help people in Africa. And I said, but you're in Africa, you're there in nature, you're why are you feeling these symptoms? And one of them answered, you don't understand, our only phone service is cell phone, and when they put the cell towers up, we got sick.
Wow.
So they knew it was a cause and effect. So it's everywhere around the world. You can't get away.
So how did your work diverge into into EMFs, Dr. Plourde? Because how did what was the impetus to that?
I got sick.
You found out that was the reason by deduction?
Well, that's true. Well, so 15 years ago, I started reacting to electromagnetic radiation.
Okay.
I'd walk in a Wi-Fi building, get dizzy vertigo, walk back outside, be fine. Walk back in, dizzy vertigo. So 15 years ago, actually it's longer than that. So I started buying everything I saw, and I do a lot of medical conventions. So there were a lot of products at these conventions. So I bought them and tried them, and all I did was get sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker, to the point that I couldn't go in public anymore. Once they put the smart meters, the electrical smart meters in our neighborhood, in 4 days, I had a rash on my ankle, a week up my leg, 30 days allergic to every food, and a rash over my entire body, because I knew I already had antibodies to food from having been poisoned by a dentist with mercury. Almost died. It was such a load. And then I developed all these food allergies because mercury causes leaky gut. And so all the food was leaking out. I made all these antibodies. I could only eat carrots and potatoes for a year. That's all I could eat. I was allergic to everything else. And it took me years to heal my gut. Years. Just I had cabinets full of all these things that they said would help, and they didn't help. And finally, after years and years and years, I got healed. I could eat everything again. Finally, my clothes weren't hanging off of me. I was actually a little bit overweight, and I thought, I don't care, I can eat. It was just so nice to be able to eat
You've
again.
been through the ringer.
Oh, I know.
Wow.
I've kind of had
carrots and potatoes for a year? I would die right then.
Oh.
that would kill me right there. I'd be like, you know what, I'm done. No thanks. I can't have chocolate and a good hamburger. I'm out. Right. I'm out of here.
Right. So by then, California had ruled, the judge said that electrical smart meters could not be mandatory. It's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So we were able to opt out of our meter in our house, got our neighbors on both sides to opt out. So when they were putting the electrical smart meters in the rest of the neighborhood, I thought, hey, I'm fine. But like I said, in 30 days, allergic to every food again. That's how fast the leaky gut starts with the electromagnetic radiation.
Okay, so they cause leaky gut. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe just list some of the common causes? I know sleep problems. So these are EMFs: sleep problems, infertility, lack of focus, feeling like you have ADD, headaches. You said skin rashes, which is super interesting because that's kind of relatively new. Leaky gut, so digestive problems, and of course they're super dehydrating. So that can even have to do with the headaches. But any others, Dr. Plourde, that are common, just for the audience, like common things that can be caused by the exposure to, and what EMFs stand for, just for the audience, electromagnetic frequencies. So they're man-made stuff. Cell phone, computer, again, satellites with 5G, TVs, smart houses, smart TVs, smart refrigerators, Alexa. All this stuff is just zapping us with microwaves constantly. Can't feel it, can't see it, can't touch it, can't taste it. It's still happening. So any other common symptoms?
People are sick. There's no two ways around it. Mm-hmm. If I talk to somebody long enough, they have a symptom. They just don't know it. Like the rash. They go to the drugstore and get cortisone cream for the rash.
Super interesting. I didn't know about the rash. Yeah. And you know what else I learned too on your work is that you said that the EMFs you found in your research enter the body through cuts and wounds. So openings in the body, everybody. You got a cut on your leg or whatever. The EMFs, that's their quick highway into your body. That's nuts. That's crazy. So that might mean our nostrils, like any openings too? Or
no, it's the invasion into the skin.
Okay.
So it's like I've had 7 surgeries. So that's part of my problem, of being sensitive to EMF. And then I was talking with a husband and wife, and the wife was fine and the husband was sick. And the wife was just putting the husband down, saying, it's just in your head, and on and on and on. So I asked him, well, have you had a surgery? And he goes, oh yeah, I had my whole shoulder cut open. Uh-huh. And so that's why he was feeling the EMF, and she wasn't. So, but the symptoms are blurred vision, fatigue, memory loss. It definitely destroys the cells in the hippocampus that are involved with memory, numbness in your arms and legs. Ooh. And nerve and muscle pain. So, and Lyme disease symptoms. And that in my research for Lyme disease is I found that in the 1960s in Lyme, Connecticut, they built a huge nautical navigation tower because they're on the East Coast, and to blast out to the ocean going ships. In the 1970s, all these weird symptoms started occurring in the people in Lyme, Connecticut. So they called it Lyme disease because
Oh
it
my
was so
gosh.
weird. Yeah.
That's super
But
interesting.
it makes sense that this electromagnetic tower is what caused all their symptoms. So the other thing is heart palpitations for sure. I
Oh,
can't tell you how many people that I talk to, young men that say I got a pacemaker, and because the heart's electrical, and so the electromagnetic radiation, it's no wonder that starts making the heart palpitate. And then shortness of breath. Um, I we know a very dear friend who got an electric car, and he had metal in his body, metal in his heart, and we said, you know, you shouldn't be driving this. And he said that I love that car so much. And he started getting short of breath. He drove himself to the emergency room and died because what's in the emergency room but more electromagnetic radiation.
oh my God. Yeah, electric cars are bad news. People have no idea. And God bless them, they think they're doing something good for the planet. And little do they know, too, it takes more minerals out of the earth to make a lot of the parts of this car than even the gas in the first place. So, and I'm glad you mentioned that about metals, because people don't realize that. You mentioned surgeries, but I know people like my brother has pins in his shoulder from dislocating his shoulder. So any metal in your body acts like an antenna that you're, especially like a rainy day or even humidity. Like my brother's in a lot of pain, and same goes for piercings. So people that get their nose pierced, their navel, any body part, that's an antenna. So it
Their
just
eyes, yeah,
amplifies.
absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
I totally agree with you.
did you
Yeah.
say the eyes?
Well, the eyebrow, they're
Oh,
getting
right. Yes. Oh my God. I was like, wait a minute. What's that? Oh yeah,
yeah,
eyebrow. Yeah. So anything pierced with metal on your body is only going to exacerbate it. So take that sucker out.
right.
Wow. Yeah. So huge. So what do we do about the EMFs? What are some solutions here? Because like everybody else, you and I wouldn't be together today if we didn't have EMFs. We didn't have the
Well,
technology.
that's true.
So
Yeah.
we have to take the good and the bad. We all use cell phones. Well, most of us. And I know I can't do my job without it. I try to mitigate it. So what are some of your tips for people to be smart about it, be aware, use it sensibly while not ruining your health?
The mitigation, that's a good word,
Uh-huh.
because we do need to mitigate it because it's absolutely destroying us. It's destroying us, it's destroying our pets, it's destroying life. We have these huge trees that blossom once a year. It's like going out to 5 beehives out there every year. This year we had 20 bees, and I could see them
Oh,
dying. I could see them
yeah.
dying on the ground, on the
Oh,
cement. So yeah, so we're hurting everything. In Korea, where the kids really have a lot of electronics, they're calling it digital dementia in the kids, that they're losing their
in the
memory.
kids.
So there's no two ways around it.
Dementia
They're
in the
definitely,
kids. It's like
yeah,
children getting diabetes now, which is like normal.
absolutely.
Yeah, it just screws up it's just bad news. So what do we do other than, like for me, 9 o'clock, you're not gonna hear from Amy. Like my phone, unless it's an emergency and my mom's calling me 20 times at night at 11, or obviously I'm gonna pick up. But no, I just power down. I can't believe people sleep with their phone next to their bed and all this crazy stuff, and blue lights and alarm clocks, or the lights of the neighbor's house, and we have to me, I guess what I'm getting at is we have to institute our own personal boundaries and rules that work for us based on our priorities. For me, I have to sleep. And again, like I mentioned earlier, for my job requires me to be with technology, which I do not like. I hate. But let me tell you, every day I'm out there with my bare feet in the ground for a good 20, 30 minutes with my dogs and, communing with the trees, no technology. I take breaks. Again, same thing, facing the sun. And I know one of the other episodes you're on my show, you share the importance of the sun, and that's fantastic for people to refer to that episode. But what I'm getting at is I do my best to mitigate it. I also have shielding, biogeometry things that I use, and again I have those boundaries. So What are some of the things you do and other people can do?
I wear this. This is called BioDot, and it strengthens your energy field. I was using all these other things that are on the market, which is really a shame because they don't work. But once I found this, I could go back out in public again, because the holes in your energy field, all the cell phones, all the radiation just go right into your body.
And is it a necklace? When you say this?
It's a round dot. It's just a round BioDot, it's called.
Okay, and do you do anything else personally to mitigate the effects?
Yes. What we do is we turn off the electricity to our bedroom at night, so that we don't even get the radiation from the wiring in the walls or from any of the equipment that's there. I don't need to do that, but we figure if it was good to help me get well, might as well keep doing it to stay well.
All great tips. All great tips. So there's a lot we can do to stay in the world. I think one of the most powerful things too is just being cognizant of it. I know with I had the EMF guy Nick Pino on the show, episode 63. If anyone wants to check it out, he's an EMF expert. You've probably heard of him. He wrote the tinfoil hat guide to EMFs or something of that nature. Anyway, episode 63, and he talks about the research, which I'm sure you're aware, like even just proximity to your body, like holding a cell phone just 12 inches as opposed to right on your ear, like is a 70% decrease in exposure. Like, so little things like that, not putting the laptop on your lap right near your organs. I mean, that's just a disaster.
One of the doctors says it's very misnamed. It should have never been named laptop, because it should never go on your lap ever.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. No, well, the whole thing is, yeah. So intelligent use. Okay, well, that's wonderful. Are there any last thoughts on the EMF topic as we kind of come toward the end here?
We didn't really go through it, because it's not only the symptoms. It's in the book, it's autism, Alzheimer's, obesity, multiple sclerosis, allergies, cancers, no two ways around it.
Yes.
Spoken at cancer conventions where parents were there with their 17-year-old who had brain cancer due to sleeping with his phone, 15-year-olds with breast cancer.
Oh, God, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, you see people put it in their back pocket. You see men put it in their shirt, right on their heart.
We had a doctor, an energy doctor, measure this.
She's just showing her phone has dots on it, so it's a product you can get to put on your phone.
Yeah. So when he saw how well they worked, he sent us a graph that he had created for it, and he said, "I had no idea your dots work so well. I'm buying one for everybody in my family at Christmas," because we really need to protect ourselves from these radiations. You know, you can keep the phone away, but it's still putting out radiation.
Yes. Okay, where can people find them? Well, this is probably good for you to direct us toward your website, perhaps the store where we can get these products, all of your books. Where can we find you and learn more?
Our website for the EMF, it's called bestemfproducts.com.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of them on there. And we have grounding products too. Grounding is what heals all the damage to all the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have grounding sheets, we have grounding mats to put your feet on. They go together. They both need to happen.
For the audience, grounding is?
It's what repairs the body. So it's what repairs, it brings up the Earth's electrons and then heals all the cells that have been damaged. And
yeah, so basically grounding is connecting to the natural Earth's magnetic frequencies to put us back to normal. It's like setting the reset button. It's
right, yeah.
It's grounding. Yeah.
And it definitely repairs our cells. There's just no two ways around it. So, and we finally have grounding products that we believe in. For a while, we were selling them, and then they changed them to add polyester, and we refused to sell those because polyester attracts electricity. Wow. So we now have 95% cotton with 5% silver sheets. Excellent. And I feel so much better when I sleep on the sheets. It's just amazing to me. And people who get them call and say, "Wow, I didn't realize, how much better I feel now." So these products go together. The energy dots that make your environment safer, and then the grounding to help repair the body for all the damage.
Excellent. You put that with some, like I said, some boundaries with your exposure and use, as well as putting your feet on the earth, getting out in nature, being mindful of when you're in big cities or, an environment with a lot of technology and fancy stuff, if you travel a lot. And, maybe within Dr. Plourde's book, looking at these are some symptoms that people aren't connecting the dots, no pun intended, like, oh, who would have thought a skin rash might be because I'm on Instagram too much, like stupid stuff like that. And this whole Lyme disease thing, once again, you're educating me. I didn't know a connection that it can mask Lyme disease symptoms. I mean, it's almost sad. It's like, what isn't a symptom? Like everything bad is like, could be EMF, it's like everything.
That's true. But we feel that the vast majority of Lyme disease, it's not from the little parasite or whatever, parasite or Borrelia, but it's really electromagnetic radiation sickness. That's really what it is. And then they give antibiotics. They don't work because that's not the problem. The problem is getting away from the electromagnetic radiation. So,
wow.
And I got into this area because the radiations cause headaches and insomnia, irritability, and fatigue. And so I was hearing, this is years ago, I was hearing from all these people up in Northern California because they got their electrical smart meters before we did in Southern California. And they were all saying the same thing. I must be premenopausal. I'm so tired. I can't sleep because it definitely interferes with your sleep hormones. And then I'm so irritable and I'm so tired. They all said the same thing. And then when I looked at their 6-page profile I had them fill out, I knew it wasn't hormones. And so I spoke to each one in depth. What's new, what's different, what's changed? And it was the electrical smart meter going on the residence. And there's just no two ways around it. People are so sick. And we've had people on our street here. We have a church that's got a, cell phone tower in their tower, and it's just right near us. And the cluster of homes around there, those people have died. They've gotten cancer. They've gotten Alzheimer's.
And the people like that live in high rises, like condos with multiple, your headboard of your head could be against the wall of your neighbor who's got, what do you call a router right there. You're just concentrated, or, you can't go anywhere with, trying to get online and internet, and all of a sudden all these things come up on your phone of different, passwords. And, it's just, we're just getting bombarded. And so people don't even realize, like, no wonder why, we have all these symptoms, because we're just not aware. Because again, you can't see it, touch it, smell it, taste it, but it's happening. It's really, really insidious, and scary.
We had a woman who had rented a house on the beach in Miami Beach. And she called and said, I really need help. I'm sick. 3 of my 4 kids are sick. And so when I looked at all of the things, from her family, and then I put in her address showed 900 cell towers within 4 miles of her house.
That's like a zip code, right? What do you put in, cell tower locator or something with a zip code? I've heard of that. What's that?
That's in our book, our EMF Freedom book.
Yeah.
But 900 cell towers, that's more than in Manhattan. It was no wonder she was sick. So we sent her all of our dots and grounding things. And 6 weeks later, she said, we're fine. We're just doing great. And I said, well, we can get you out of your lease because you're in a really concentrated EMF area. And she goes, oh, no, I'm fine. We're so fine with the products you sent us. But we would still recommend that people try to reduce their exposure.
Wow. Okay, so you have a website for the EMF, and now how about back to the hormonal, hysterectomy, menopause? So let's just direct everybody as we wrap up here. All your websites, any books you want to mention, anything in particular where they can find more. And this will be in the show notes, everybody, in case you're driving or just not able to jot it down.
Yeah, I've written 5 books, And so, yeah, they're all important.
Yep.
Right? EMF freedom, solutions for the 21st century pollution. I go through every symptom and then all the diseases, how these radiations cause all of these symptoms. It's proof. And it's on third edition. I went through 3 editions in very short time because I kept adding and rearranging so that a spouse could hand it to their spouse and say, I'm not crazy, here's the proof. Because the biochemistry of behind every symptom and disease, and or hand it to your doctor. And then the hysterectomy and ovary removal and hormone replacement, that book, it's over 1,000 references. And this really explains why our ovaries and uterus are critically important to keep in our body. And then what you had seen was the hysterectomy, the best or worst thing that ever happened to me. I was just blown away by the letters women wrote after reading my book. And and then our sunscreen books. This is the second sunscreen book we wrote. I wrote this because this is why the zinc oxide, titanium dioxide are not kid safe. They say they're kid safe, they're reef safe. Well, they're not safe for kids. They're harming their brains, and the oxides kill the phytoplankton, so they're killing the bottom of the food chain. So it's staggering to me this has been allowed to happen because we need the sun. And then the first sunscreen book that I wrote, Sunscreen's Biohazard Treatise Hazardous Waste, because it all is waste. I very grateful that I learned to scuba dive 50 years ago and I got to see the gorgeous coral, and then saw it all go down to just this white graveyard, to where I'd even cry while I was under the water. It's so awful to see how damaging it is, and they're not addressing it at all. They're just, so several cities and states have decided that they can't do two of the chemicals, but 2 out of the 16, all 16 need to be abolished and not used. And we don't need them. All we need is a high antioxidant diet. That's all we need.
And we'll refer everybody to the episode of you on the show. I don't have the number on me here, but we have a whole episode on that. Everybody, you really need to listen to it. The importance of the truth about sunscreens, the sun itself, sunburn, suntan, what we're doing to the coral reefs, how to safely be in the sun, all that. That's a great episode with Dr. Plourde. So just look on the show list, everybody, and Dr. Plourde gets into that in more detail. So Dr. Plourde, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your work, your time today. It's been an amazing episode. We went into 2 very important topics, and everybody, if you want more in-depth, this is just scratching the surface. If you're curious or maybe it triggered something in you, she's got 5 books. She's got a couple websites. She's on YouTube. She's in podcasts. She's here. You can hire her personally. There's a lot more information for you if you're seeking answers, you're having problems like so many people are. And again, Dr. Plourde, thank you so much for being on Awakening Aphrodite.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Absolutely. Thanks for spreading the word.
You got it. Well, we're in this together. All right, everybody, you know what to do. If you appreciated the work today, it'd be great if you would share it, or maybe even if you feel inclined, leave a review. It'd be amazing. And definitely check out Dr. Plourde, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also Fit Amy TV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.